Hello and welcome to the Resource Management Report build series. In this series we're going to go through and actually build from scratch the Excel document that we use in class and that you can download from the SharePoints. But we're really going to dive in and show how the data connections work, inputting the formulas, tables, named ranges, things like that. So trying to leave no stone unturned. So what we've got here, I just put a new folder on the desktop. And what we see here is this blank workbook. Now that's what we're going to get started with. I'll open this up here and show you there's nothing in here, and we're going to build this up eventually to that final product that you can connect your data to. But I want to show you how to pull the data in. How did we do the tables? How the named ranges work? So the data sources, so you can see Arrow's Workday Execution Report, Chris BQ status of funds, Chris BQ STH. The Deems reports here, so you have your general ledger and your status of funds. And then we have two complementary reports, so to speak. Two reports, commitment to obligation report and the invoice by LOA report, that are going to help us make sense of the general ledger, and we'll show you how we use Excel to bring in some information from those reports as well. While I'm building this, I'm going to be working off of the class template. So if you come to the class that we teach, you're going to start with a template that looks like this. Now I'm doing this to save time, but I will show you each and every step. So we're going to go from a blank workbook to this template, and then we're going to go from this template, pull in all the data and connect all the dots for you. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to add a few sheets here at the bottom. You see sheet 1, sheet 2. The first one I'm going to title is formulas. The second one will be data tables, and that's where we're going to store all of our related information for drop downs and data validation, things like that. Pateo description table, and then a dashboard. Now I'm going to go ahead and select the formulas, hold shift and select the dashboard, right click, and I'm going to color these all yellow for consistency. Now you can see where it says grouped up here. To get out of a grouping, I want to hit this plus sign, and then that releases that grouping for me, and we'll need many more tabs as we go. The formulas tab, we're going to use that to paste text values of the formulas that we use while we're building, so that you can reference them, study them, so that they're just there. If something were to break or you were to need to replace it, it'll be there, no problem. It's kind of a best practice when it comes to that. So the data tables tab, in here what we're going to do are start to input some of the things that are going to help this tool become dynamic, so that it kind of works for you turnkey. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to copy some of these values from the other template I showed you earlier, and I'm just going to paste the values right in here. And you can see it's just text values for now. What I want to do is insert a table. It says, where is the data for your table? It's going to highlight a contiguous string of data. And so in this case it guessed right. It says my table has headers, and that is correct. I'm going to hit OK. Now as soon as I did that, this table tools came up and it says table name is table number 1, and that's correct. It's just going to increment your tables 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As a best practice, what I want to do with this is rename this FC table. Now this is not necessarily the best name or the name you would want to use, but it's what will be in the template, and it's our funds control table. So from now on, I'm hit enter. From now on, this is going to be referred to as the funds control table. I'm going to highlight everything in the table just below the title, and you see how here, so I've got a table name, and right down in here I'm highlighting the table. I'm going to select in here and type in LIST, and I'll show you exactly why we do that later. I'm just trying to step you through kind of how Excel works and when we're naming these to make it more intuitive for you. So I'll hit enter again. Now where did that go? I'm going to come up to the formulas tab to name manager. And in the name manager, when we use tables or lists, tables are objects in Excel. So I can't zoom in for you on this table, but if you were to look down here, if you're doing it with me, you'll see tables, data tables, A2 through A8. That's what fund code table is referring to, A2 through A8 with a header. The funds FC table list that I'm referring to, okay, it's saying the funds control table and everything in funds control. It's a one column table, and it's always going to refer to everything in that column. Tables are dynamically expanding. There's a little tab here at the bottom that you can click and drag down and drag back up. The nice thing about it is if I drag this down, let's say 3 more records, come back into the name manager, I'm going to see that this doesn't change because it's dynamic. It just says give me the whole column in that table. But if I select back into the funds control table and look, I'm going to see that it now expanded from A2 to A11. Before it was A8. So in terms of funds control levels, if I have BOK 01, BOK 04, if I wanted to add something, I can do that later in the future, not have to worry about it expanding into the other parts of my report. It will just expand dynamically for you. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and add several more tables here. So just coming over and copying and pasting some more values. I'm going to go to the Home tab, paste values, and I can hit insert table, or if you see this little table tool, it says Control T. As long as my data is contiguous or all together in one column or one row or a combination of both, no gaps, I can hit Control T. It comes up with that same thing. My table has headers, and I'm going to hit OK. Double click here to expand it. Now you notice I left a gap. If I were to have done this before I made this a table of its own, it would have thought that this table wanted to expand to the left and add them both together. So I left a gap, and then when I made it a table, I can then come in here and delete this column, and now it's going to be all good. So in this one, I'm going to go ahead and go back up to the table tools and design, and I want to name table 2. I want to name that COMM table, so my commodity table, and hit enter. You can see how this goes off the bottom of the screen. And a table, I can use some keyboard shortcuts to kind of navigate around the screen for me. So I'm going to select the first one and hit Control Shift and down arrow. That's going to select the entire range. And again, it says commodity table, and I want to come in here and retype list. And again, I'll show you why we do that later. But that common practice is to name your tables, and then we're going to use that list for data validation later. And again, I'll go ahead and prove this to you. I now have funds control table, and I have a commodity table, and then I have a list associated with each. So I'll go ahead and do this for Resource Center as well. I'll do this quickly. Control T, my table has headers, and hit OK. Label this RC table, enter, and then select this range here, RC list. Select the rest of these here. I will go ahead and get the BOC breakdown and the sub-commodity. Now what these are going to be in the end, these are going to be ways for us to define our lines of accounting or our PTEOs. So I brought in all that data. I'm not going to sit here and type that out for you, so it's just a way to save time. I'm going to hit OK. So I've got my table here. Control T has headers, have a table here. Delete these ones in the middle to kind of clean up a little bit. And then let's see here. Let's verify my Resource Center. I have table 4, table 5. See how I have a Resource Center table, Resource Center list, and then I just put these 2 new tables in there. So let's go ahead and finish with our best practices. Call this BOC table. Enter. and select that first one, Control Shift down arrow, BOC list, and then finally we'll name this one subcom table, and that's just breaking down your commodities further into more specific things so that you can pull reports based on them. And Control Shift down arrow to select everything, highlight this LIST. Alright, so I've got these tables in there. Check it again, name manager. So I have a BOC table, and then this looks like a table icon, and this looks like a little tag icon. That's that list or named range inside the table. And again, having a named range inside a table is nice because it will expand dynamically for you. Moving on, the next table we're going to bring in to kind of add definition to our data is going to be a fund code to appropriation table. So you can go to FMDQS, or you may have these at home. And so copied and pasted this in here, Control T, hit OK, and name this fund code to appropriation table. And I want an underscore, not a hyphen here, to be consistent if nothing else. And see the mistake I made here? I'll go ahead and give me an opportunity to show you how to correct for this. Now this table, now I'm in the table, there's a convert to range. So I'm going to go ahead and convert this back to a range. It says, do you want to convert table to a normal range? I'm going to say yes. So now it's not actually a table anymore. Or I could do this. I could hit Control Z, back to where I didn't have a table anymore, and Control Z is going to undo up here. So let's try this one again. Control T, my table has headers, that's where I messed up before, and hit OK. Name this table again FC to APPR and enter. Now I don't need to do a named range in this table. I'm going to use this to go ahead and make sure that between the dual processing systems that we're dealing with right now, BQ and DEEMS, one of them uses those appropriation symbols, the other one doesn't. But when we bring together our common identifiers, those lines of accounting or PATEO that we use, we want to make sure that both sets have that unique or similar information so that we don't get confused. The next thing I want to do is to bring in the GLACs, and so I'll kind of do this quickly. I'm copying from the other sheet, pasting into this sheet, pasting values. Now the GLACs you can find a couple different places. We pulled these off of the DEEMS Outreach portal, or now it is the DEEMS SharePoint that it just went to. And what these GLACs are going to do is to help tell us what stage of accounting is being affected by each of the transactions that we have, and that's important for several reasons, and we'll show you that later. So we have our GLACs here. These are the ones that affect our budgetary lines of accounting. You see how this table expanded way down to the end. We definitely don't want that. So I'm going to go ahead and right click and delete these rows we do not want. Do not want to be using rows that we do not need to. Throughout the course of a year, these will get your status of funds, your selective transaction history, and all that will get fairly large. So we do have to do a bit of work to make sure that the workbooks don't get too big or don't get too slow. So we brought our GLACs in, and as you can see, obligation, 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 that's what all of these mean. They're doing some type of T-ledger transaction, so we're kind of labeling that for you. And then finally we went out to FMDQS and pulled the EQ to object class crosswalk, pulled that in for you. Paste, and I didn't label this, did I? Label my GLAC table, so GLAC table, enter. And you can see all we did here is we have our eq next to our object class and the definition for what that is. Now this is a fairly large table. If I hit Control down arrow to the end of that range, you'll see it's row 14,253. So there's quite a few of them, but we wanted to make sure that we were as comprehensive as we could be within reason. And we'll show you what we use this for later. I'm going to hit Control T. My table does have headers, and I'm going to hit OK. And as our best practice, select that eq underscore OC is how I'm going to refer to this table from now on. And we're good to go. Now, that's going to be it for this video. Next video, we're going to input our Pateo description table, the same idea, and then we're going to input something into the dashboard. See you then.